Hayo, Suikoden's master chef. Hayo received a lot of backstory and development during Suikoden 2 thanks to having an entire minigame and subplot dedicated to him. During the events of this goofy cooking subplot, we found out that Hayo used to be part of an organization called the Black Dragon Cooking Clan, and that his lover Shun Min was killed after stealing the Moonbird recipe from them. Fortunately for fans of Hayo, the events of that backstory were partially explored in a short story titled Battle to the Death on Black Dragon Island, which was included in the Genso Suikoden Short Story Collection 3, a book that released in Japan in December 2001. This is by far the shortest of the short stories, coming in at a mere 11 pages excluding pictures. It takes place right before the events of Suikoden 2 and it covers Hayo's escape from Black Dragon Island. Much like Hayo's storyline in Suikoden 2, it is a serious story, but it's got some of that cookoff goofiness sprinkled in. The story begins with Hayo being pursued by members of the Black Dragon Cooking Clan. The men stopped as the leader of their group knelt down to check for Hayo's tracks. He pointed in the direction the tracks led and reminded the men that Retsu's orders are to retrieve the Moonbird recipe no matter what, and not to kill Hayo too quickly. As the men laughed, a spring roll flew through the air and struck the man's face, causing him to fall over and begin suffocating as the spring roll stuck to his face, covering his mouth. One of his companions peeled the spring roll off his face. The man stood up gasping for air, coughing and swearing, and pointed in the direction the spring roll came from. One of the men then threw his kitchen knife in that direction, which grazed Hayo's arm and stuck to a tree. The man rushed towards Hayo and pulled his knife out of the tree, but Hayo smashed his bamboo ingredient container into the man's face, which made him scream in agony as garlic juice burnt his eyes. Hayo then ran into the forest as he was pursued by the remaining men. Hayo began twisting his body as he ran, throwing black abalone shells at his pursuers as if they were throwing stars. One of the shells hit one of the men on the forehead, knocking him unconscious. Hayo continued to run but snagged his feet on a fallen branch and fell over. He picked himself back up and started running again, but once again slipped. Hayo could hear his pursuers getting closer, so he laid down amongst the bamboo trees and the moss, holding his breath until they passed him by. As the men passed him by, Hayo stood up and felt the sea breeze tickling his mustache. He spotted a harbour down the hill. From a distance, he spotted men frantically searching the town's alleyways as the town's inhabitants looked on in a frightened manner. Hayo knew that he needed to be careful from here on out. He snuck into town, crouching low and carefully avoiding the men searching for him by watching their movements and listening for their voices. As Hayo was about to make his next move through the alley, a member of the Black Dragon Cooking Clan turned into the alley ahead of him, cutting him off. But before he was spotted, the back door of an old building opened up and an arm stretched out, grabbing Hayo and pulling him inside. Hayo fell to the floor and reached for his knife, but a hand covered his mouth and whispered to him to be quiet. Hayo could then hear multiple footsteps running through the alley outside. As he stood up, he noticed that he was standing inside a kitchen. The man who pulled Hayo inside then grabbed a cloth from the shelf and threw it to Hayo, telling him to bandage the wound on his arm. He then advised Hayo to head into the sewers from the alley and to make his way towards the waterway. Hayo thanked him for his help but wondered why the man had saved him. The man responded that he used to be a member of the Black Dragon Cooking Clan and that when he was a member it was a respectable organisation for chefs from all over the world to hone their skills, but these days it's nothing more than a band of thugs, exactly as Shun Min had feared. Hayo flinched when he heard the man say Shun Min's name, but he told Hayo not to worry. He revealed that he knew Shun Min since she was born and that Retsu used to be an honourable man until he became fascinated by Jinkai's plan. He advised Hayo to protect Shun Min and to escape the island as soon as possible. He then nodded at Hayo as Hayo made his way out the door. Instead of following the man's advice and going into the sewers, Hayo made his way towards a warehouse by the docks where he was supposed to meet Shun Min before escaping together. Hayo entered the warehouse and began calling out Shun Min's name. He spotted a dim light by a staircase at the back of the warehouse and made his way down into the basement. Hayo froze at the end of the stairs as a foul odour filled the air. Inside the basement, he spotted a man laying on the floor in a pool of blood with his hands tied behind his back. He gently lifted him up and saw that the man's throat had been slit, but what shocked Hayo even more is that he recognised who the man was. He was the guide who was supposed to bring Shun Min to town. A cold chill ran down Hayo's spine as he spotted a lock of long black hair in the man's hands. Just then, Hayo heard a sound coming from upstairs and ran towards it, but instead of Shun Min, it was a man in a fiery red outfit. The man introduced himself as Yenchin. He revealed that he didn't care that Hayo had stolen the Moonbird recipe or that he planned to run away with Shun Min. All he cared about was that Hayo was praised as one of the best chefs on the island and that he was running away without making use of his skills. He then challenged Hayo to a cook-off, telling him that if he wins, he'll tell him where Shun Min is, but if he loses, he has to hand over the Moonbird recipe. The two stepped out of the warehouse to the docks for their cook-off. Futan Chen appeared and music began playing out of nowhere. With a megaphone in his hand, Futan Chen introduced the two chefs. He introduced Yenchin as a master of the culinary world who has a reputation for making fiery hot foods that leave his customers speechless with only tears of joy. He then announced Hayo as a cheerful chef who wants to make everyone happy when they eat. Futan Chen then reveals that he brought 2 chickens for the contestants. It wasn't exactly a cook-off, they just prepared a raw chicken each and Hayo was faster. Yenchin admitted defeat and advised Hayo to leave the island. Hayo asked him about Shun Min, but the 2 men froze and Yenchin gripped his knife as members of the Black Dragon cooking clan stepped out of the shadows. Yenchin reacted angrily, shouting that they promised to leave Hayo's life in his hands in a cooking contest. Becoming even angrier, Yenchin snarled at the men, asking if they used him as bait. Hayo grabbed a rolling pin, anticipating an attack. The men ignored Yenchin and attacked Hayo, who dodged their strikes and deflected their blades with his rolling pin. Yenchin screamed in anger, demanding they stop, that Hayo was his opponent. The men continued ignoring Yenchin and kept their focus on Hayo. Hayo smashed his rolling pin upwards between one of the men's legs, who then staggered backwards in pain. Just then, Hayo was slashed in the back with a knife and fell to one knee. As the men went to finish Hayo off, Yenchin slashed his knife across them and made them back away, but one of the men who dodged the attack slashed Yenchin with a sword. As Yenchin fell to the ground, Hayo crawled towards him. Hayo told him that cooking shouldn't be a source of conflict, it's meant to be a source of joy. Yenchin called out Hayo's name as he sat up. He pulled a piece of paper out of his pocket and poured sesame oil all over it. He told the men of the Black Dragon cooking clan that he'd burn the Moonbird recipe if they came any closer. The men from the Black Dragon cooking clan all froze, as did Hayo in confusion, as he had the Moonbird recipe in his possession. Yenchin then told Hayo to escape from the island while he distracts the Black Dragon cooking clan. Hayo asked him about Shun Min and Yenchin apologized. He told Hayo that he wanted to witness his skills for himself to see if he was worthy of the recipe as Shun Min said he was. Hayo again asked about Shun Min, wanting to know where she was. Yenchin told him that he cut Shun Min's hair himself to trick Hayo into believing she was still alive. Hayo refused to believe him, but Yenchin again apologized, stating that they cut her down in front of him and that he couldn't stop them. Hayo began to cry. He questioned what everything they had done was for and why he risked his life for a recipe he didn't care about. Without Shun Min, nothing meant anything to Hayo. The joy of cooking and the joy of life would be lost without her by his side. Yenchin revealed that before Shun Min was killed, she told him that she believes only Hayo has the power to use the recipe for good, and now he believes it too. He told Hayo not to waste her life, not to doubt their choices, and to follow the path they chose. He then whispered at Hayo to go and shoved him into the water. Yenchin then struck his knife against the stones on the ground, the sparks igniting the paper in his hand. Hayo cried out that he can't swim as he struggled in the water. As the waves carried him away, he could hear Yenchin's cries in the distance, and he doubted that Yenchin would be taken alive. Shun Min gave her life for the Moonbird recipe and entrusted it to Hayo. That will was now also Yenchin's will. Hayo couldn't let their lives go to waste and now had a purpose to go on. The cold water numbing the pain of his injuries, Hayo doggy paddled his way towards the mainland. And that's it for Hayo's backstory. As I mentioned at the beginning, this backstory came from a short story titled Battle to the Death on Black Dragon Island from the Genso Suikoden Short Story Collection 3 that released in Japan in 2001. If there are any other character short stories you want me to cover, let me know in the comments below. You can find a list of all characters who receive short stories in the pinned comment. Or if there are any other Suikoden or non-related Suikoden topics that you want me to make videos on, do let me know. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.